All right. Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name's Nicole, and welcome back to our English class. How was your weekend? Well, I hope you spend your weekend well. And a warm welcome to our discussion, our online discussion on another topic. We are going to tap into another topic as we have already finished our topic last week on IELTS and TOEFL preparation. So for today and the following days, I think about 2 weeks. I don't know how long this particular topic will go on because we cannot really try to, encapsulate everything into a few days only because this topic, pronunciation, I will mention it already, on pronunciation, though it might seem simple, but it's not simple at all. It is the very fundamental of everything that we speak, everything, how we speak, how we communicate with each other. So it's very important that we really tap into this particular topic very deeply. That is why I planned all the topics on the following days for this particular topic under for this particular lesson and the topics under this. I am planning to have it, more than a week. I think more than a week of schedule. Aside from the topics that you see on the screen, there are still another set of topics under pronunciation because again, as I've mentioned, pronunciation is really important in speaking. It is really important in English language learning. So we cannot really just brush it off very easily. Like we should not learn it just a few days because it is really not enough because 3 days or 5 days, which is already a week for us, is only 5 hours, and it's not enough to encapsulate not everything but at least almost everything about pronunciation. Okay, the very fundamental of speaking and communicating. So yes, I'm really glad you are all here. um, okay, so again, I've mentioned our topic for today. Okay, can you hear me well? Let me check for a moment. Just to be sure if I am clear in your end, at your end, because, yeah, all right, all clear. I'm checking from time to time if my audio and video, as well as my presentation, is totally fine. So, as you know, I will not continue the discussion. I will try to pause as much as possible if there are any technical issues that we encounter all the way. Anyway, going back, so pronunciation. Now, when we talk about pronunciation, sometimes people get a little nervous. They might think it is all about sounding exactly like a native speaker, but let me tell you right now, that's absolutely not the goal here. Our main aim is to help you speak English clearly and confidently so that others can understand you easily and you feel great about expressing yourself. So think of it like this. Good pronunciation is like a clear roadmap for your listener because it helps them follow your thoughts without getting lost. We all have a unique well no yeah we all have unique accents, and that's wonderful. Of course, this discussion is about fine-tuning those sounds just enough to make your communication smoother and more effective. So it's all about building confidence, not losing your identity. Over the next little while, we're going to dive into some practical aspects of English pronunciation. We will look at key sounds, common challenges, some tips and tricks that can really make a difference. And the best part, we will be doing all of this together, of course, in a supportive and relaxed environment as much as possible so that learning can really be effective, can really be gained and grasped. So there are no, silly questions here, and every attempt is a step forward, of course. I'm really excited to share some insights with you, and I can't wait to see your active participation. So, this is a space for learning, practicing, and growing all at your own pace. So, let's get ready to make some progress and boost our speaking confidence, of course. Okay, everyone. All right, same slide. For our first session today, we are diving straight into a key area of English pronunciation, the often interesting, sometimes tricky relationship between English spelling and sound, which is under Introduction to English Sounds and the IPA. Now, this particular topic, I will be dividing it into two sessions because IPA alone can really take like at least an hour, but we are going to fit that particular topic into 1 hour because that's just our time. No, that's just the time for our session per session. So I'm going to try to give at least the basics, so that you can grasp what IPA is, which is the International Phonetic Alphabet. If you are familiar, if you were with me in the previous sessions, IPA transcription are those representations of the words or phrase, a guide on how to pronounce those particular phrases for those particular words. So that's IPA. We are gonna tap on that tomorrow. But for today, we are going to focus on, again, I've mentioned the relationship between the English spelling and its sound. So letters versus sounds. We're going to focus on that. The reality check. Now, in English language, what you see written down and what you hear can be quite different, right? If you've noticed. Unlike some languages, our letters don't always make just one sound, and one sound can be spelled many ways. It's just how English is. It's how complicated English is. So our main goal for today is to simply become aware of this, understanding that spelling doesn't always directly tell you the sound is the first vital step on improving your pronunciation. Very, very important, very basic, but really essential. It helps us prepare our ears and mouths for the real sounds of English. So let's explore this foundational idea together. Let's start with this question. Let's ponder on this question. Why is pronunciation important? An excellent question to get us thinking. Why is pronunciation important? This is where your voices come in. Before I share my thoughts, I'd love to hear from all of you in your own words, from your experience. You can do that. Why do you think pronunciation is important when learning and using as well English? Don't worry about perfect answers, just share what comes to mind. Your ideas are valuable, of course, and will help us all understand this topic better. What are your thoughts? You can, type it in our chat bot. Are you in here? Let me check. Oh, all right. I think everyone's having a hard time accessing the chat bot. I don't know why, but there's no one here for some reason. But I hope it's not because there's no one viewing this. But yeah, let's just continue. Maybe some are just a little bit late. Maybe they will be present later on in our discussion. Anyway, yeah, all right. So pronunciation. Why is pronunciation important? Well, I have included several reasons for this. Pronunciation is important because it contributes to intelligibility, where this is about being misunderstood. This is about being understood. When your pronunciation is clear, people understand you easily without having to guess or ask you to repeat yourself. It makes conversations flow so much better. Second, there's clarity of meaning. Sometimes just a slight change in sound can change the whole meaning of a word. So by focusing on pronunciation, you avoid confusing similar sounding words, ensuring your message is always crystal clear. Next is, of course, because it contributes to your confidence. And this is huge, right? When you know you are speaking clearly and correctly, you naturally feel more comfortable and confident using English. That confidence encourages you to speak more and more, and the more you speak, the more you improve, of course. And next is effective communication. It contributes to that because beyond just being understood, good pronunciation helps your message and your feelings come across clearly. Like, it adds to how well you can express yourself and connect with others. For a moment. For a moment. Okay. All right. Following that is, of course, it also contributes to your listening skills. This is a cool bonus. When you practice making sounds correctly, your ears become better at hearing those sounds. So, this means you will better understand native speakers even when they are speaking quickly. It's a two-way street, basically. Also, pronunciation is important because it contributes to your credibility. When your speech is clear, when your speech is easy to follow, it simply sounds more professional and more polished. This can be really helpful in academic or work settings, particularly. And lastly, of course, for social connection, the very important one. Ultimately, language is about connecting with people, right? So, clear pronunciation makes it smoother to interact, to share ideas, and build relationships with others who speak English. So, as you can see, it's not just about sounding perfect here. That's not what pronunciation is all about. It's about opening doors. It's about building confidence and making your English work effectively for you. So, any initial thoughts or questions about these points? Like, which one resonates most with you? Anyway, wait. Let me check. All right, there's no one. Okay. All right. Maybe just a little bit late. Some people maybe just a little bit late, but I hopefully they will come here later. Of course, you're always welcome anytime. Anyway, moving on to the next part. All right, everyone. This slide is a visual to help us understand a core idea we just discussed about English. Now, take a look at this slide. You can see one box says 26 letters, right? That's our familiar English alphabet. A, B, C, and so on, all the way to Z. We all know that there's 26 letters in the English alphabet. Now, next to it, actually, I don't know. I'm going to ask you about this one, but I forgot to cover it. But yeah, um there's a box of sounds next to 26, right? So considering that, there's actually 44 distinct sounds to create all the words in English language. So, which is of course way much higher than the amount or the number of letters in the English alphabet. Now, what does this tell us? There's 26 letters in the English alphabet, but there's 44 sounds, distinct sounds as well in the English alphabet, which creates all the words, all the words in the English language. So, what does this tells us? This is exact. This is exact. This is exactly why we can always rely on spelling to figure out pronunciation. Because if we had 44 letters for 44 sounds, it would be much simpler, right? Because each letter represents a particular sound, one and only sound. It would be much simpler if the number of letters as well as the number of sounds really aligned. But since we have fewer letters than sounds, it means that those 26 letters have to do a lot of double duty, sometimes making different sounds and sometimes combining with other letters to create new sounds. So this slide really highlights why learning pronunciation as a separate skill is so valuable. It helps us bridge the gap between what we read and what we hear and say. It confirms that we are on the right track by focusing on sounds, not just letters. Okay? All right. So this is actually a visual summary of everything we have been talking about, bringing it all together in one clear picture. Actually, not everything, because it's actually a longer version. But yeah, you can see right at the top, it reminds us 26 letters and 44 sounds. And then it shows us how we get from those 26 letters to our 44 sounds. So look at the top level. On the left, we have our 5 vowel letters, A, E, I, O, U. And on the right, the 21 consonant letters, which are the rest, aside from the alphabets that I've mentioned earlier. Now follow the arrows down. Even though we only have 5 vowel letters, these letters combine and act in different ways to give us a total of 19 vowel sounds. That's almost, that's more than triple the amount of the original letters. So you can see how those are broken down into different types, like short vowel sounds, long vowel sounds, are controlled vowel sounds, and diphthongs. So we will explore these specific types more in later sessions, but for now, just notice how many different sounds come from those few vowel letters, only 5. Then we got 19 vowel sounds, and with those 19 vowel sounds, they are grouped accordingly. Right? Then look at the consonant side. Our 21 consonant letters produce 25 consonant sounds, which are also categorized. So there's just, a little bit more add for consonant sounds. So there's just a little bit more add on the consonants compared to the number of its consonant letters. So when you try to add up those 19 vowel sounds and 25 consonant sounds, what do you get? Exactly, our 44 total English sounds. So this chart really helps us understand why we are focusing on sounds independently from letters. It shows the rich variety of sounds in English and how our familiar alphabet letters work hard to represent them all. It's just, as I mentioned earlier, it's really a great roadmap for our pronunciation journey. So, what are your initial thoughts or questions when you see this breakdown? You can always, type it in our chat bot, and I will try to check from time to time to acknowledge you, of course, your question as well as your initial or, your general thoughts so far. Okay? All right. So, yes, I will not be diving deeper onto the topics at the bottom part of the diagram, which includes the short vowel sounds, long vowel sounds, R-controlled vowel sounds, diphthongs, consonant sounds, and digraph sounds, because we will be tapping into each of these specific categories in our upcoming sessions. We will dive deeper into what makes each one unique. So for now, it's just great to see the full picture of how many different sounds we are working with. All right, everyone, let's look at this next slide. The instruction here is simply read the words below. So I invite you all to take a moment to read these words aloud to yourselves, or if you're comfortable, feel free to read them out. Read them out, in your own comfortable spaces, of course, at your own pace. But we'll try to read this first all together. And then I'll give you time to read it again at your own comfortable spaces, at your own comfortable space and pace. Okay? All right. Let's start. We have island, flower, honest, beautiful, no. Again, island, flower, honest, beautiful, no. All right. Go ahead and give them a read. Take your time. We'll talk about them in a moment. I will give you 20 seconds to read at your own comfortable space and pace. Okay? Time starts now. All right, time's up. Excellent. Okay. After reading those words, what did you notice about them? Think back to our discussion about English spelling and sounds. The initial discussion. Did anything stand out to you? Any thoughts or observations about how they are written versus how you say them? Don't be shy. Share what came to your mind in our chat bot. Okay? All right. But anyway, since I think all right, I'll understand if you're still, maybe thinking. But anyway, let's continue. You can always share your answers in the chat bot anytime you want. Of course, I will try as much as possible acknowledge your answer. Okay? All right. Okay. Now let's go through some of the things that many English learners often notice about these specific words. So, these words are fantastic examples of why English pronunciation can be a bit tricky, but also why focusing on sounds is really, really important. Let's look at them. First is on island. Did you notice anything about the letter S in this word? Even though it's there in the spelling, we don't actually pronounce it. Meaning, it's a silent letter. So we say island, not island. Okay? Island. Next, flower. This one is interesting because it's spelled quite differently from how it sounds. So it rhymes with flower, right? The oo sound is a good example of how sometimes a combination of letters makes a unique sound that isn't immediately obvious from the individual letters. And that particular combination, oo and oo, is a diphthong. That's what we call diphthong. Vowel sound plus vowel sound, we get a diphthong. Okay? We're gonna dive deeper into that term, diphthong, in our upcoming sessions, of course. Next is honest. Similar to island, we have another silent letter here. What is it? The H at the beginning is silent. We say honest, not honest. Okay? We do not say honest. Like there's a push of air at the beginning. We do not want that. We just say honest. A silent letter H. Next is beautiful. This word is a great example of how many vowels can combine to make just one or two sounds, and that's a diphthong. That's what we call diphthong. So the E, A, U in the spelling. So these letters, let me highlight it for you, that one. And the E and the E parts, on the following syllable, don't necessarily make all the sounds you would expect from each other. From each letter individually. So it's more about the overall sound. So we say beautiful. Again, beautiful. It's a longer word with a few vowel sounds blended together. And lastly, we have no. Here's another classic silent letter, the K at the beginning of no, and as well knife, knock, etc. That is a silent letter. So we just pronounce the sound as no, N-O, something like that. Okay? So, with that, what do these words highlight for us? They perfectly demonstrate that in English, we have silent letters. We're going to talk about that. We're going to delve deeper into this particular topic on our upcoming sessions. It also demonstrates that in English, vowel combinations can be unpredictable. We are also going to talk about that later on in our upcoming sessions. So groups of words, groups of vowels, or even single vowels can make sounds you don't expect. That's vowel combinations. So these are just, these words are just great examples of why we can always rely on spelling and why listening and practical ways to, enhance yourself in actually pronouncing the sounds of these particular words is really essential because of course, how can you say something correctly if you do not practice them consistently, right? Don't worry if these tripped you up, these words. That's perfectly normal. That's exactly why we are discussing them. So it's all part of building our awareness, which is very important for this particular topic. Okay? All right. Moving on to why English sounds different with regards to our activity. Why English sounds different? Well, this isn't just a simple statement. It's the very foundation of understanding why pronunciation requires its own special attention. As the big yellow box says very clearly, in English, what you see is not always what you hear. We have seen this already with words like island or no, where letters are present in the spelling but remain completely silent in speech. This is not just a mistake. It's a characteristic of English. Now, why is English like this? Well, every language, as the slide mentions, has its own unique sound system. Think of it like a set of rules for how sounds are organized and used to make words. So, for example, some languages might have sounds that English does not, or they might never have silent letters. Their spelling might be very regular and predictable, where one letter almost always means one sound. So, English does have a specific sound system, but it's often confusing precisely because of this unique history. Now, the slide breaks it down. Letters are what we write and see, which is the alphabet. So these are our familiar 26 symbols that we use for reading and writing. Next is sounds are what we speak and hear. These are the actual noises we make with our mouths and listen for with our ears. Now the core issue, and this is the most crucial part, is that in English, letters and sound don't often match up directly. This makes pronunciation challenging. Why did this mismatch happen? Well, English has a fascinating history. It's a language that is borrowed heavily from many other languages over hundreds and hundreds of years, from Latin and Greek to French and Norse and many, many more. When words were borrowed, their spellings often came along with them. But over time, the way native English speakers pronounce things changed. So the spellings, however, often stay the same, which leads to this fascinating and sometimes frustrating disconnect between how a word looks and how it sounds, of course. That's, a little bit history of why, so that you can understand, you can justify your frustration. Okay? So if you've ever felt confused trying to pronounce an English word just by looking at its spelling, know that it's not your fault. It's never your fault. It's because of this historical development. This is precisely why we can have 26 letters but around 44 distinct sounds. Each letter simply has to work harder and be more flexible, representing different sounds in different contexts. So, understanding this fundamental point is really empowering. It means you can stop trying to force English pronunciation to fit a one letter, one sound rule, and instead you can focus on learning the actual sounds themselves. So, it shifts our learning strategy. Instead of guessing based on spelling, we learn to recognize and produce the distinct sounds of English. This awareness is the first and most vital step toward improving your clarity and confidence. Now, this concept, the distinction between letters and sounds, is exactly why our next session, where we introduce the International Phonetic Alphabet, or the IPA, will be very helpful. The IPA gives us a tool that focuses purely on sounds by passing the tricky spellings. That's how very essential, important IPA is. All right? Okay. Let's take a deeper dive into this absolutely critical point. Now, this slide, the mismatched letters versus sounds, and specifically, key point number one letter can have many sounds, which really gets to the heart of what makes English pronunciation both challenging and incredibly interesting. As the slide clearly states, the same letter can be pronounced differently. So this is not just about, a minor detail. It's a fundamental characteristic of English. Many languages have a much more direct one-to-one relationship between a written letter and the sound it makes. But English, with its rich history of borrowing from many different languages, has evolved in a way where letters often have multiple roles, making various sounds depending on their position in a word or the letters around them. So let's really look at the example of the letter A here, which is provided on the slide. Okay? Because it beautifully illustrates this complexity. Now, before that, what does the sound letter A make? There's many. That is why we are going to focus on some examples of how complicated such English pronunciation is, by having this very simple example, which is the letter A. Okay? First, consider the A in the word cut. When you say cut, that A makes a short open sound, the one often associated with the word apple. This sound is quite distinct and quick. In linguistics. This sound is represented by the IPA symbol, this one, the one in the brackets. Now take note, not brackets, but slanted line. Slanted, yeah, we call it brackets, slanted brackets. So, an IPA transcription, everyone. Every transcription that you do, whether it is only just a letter, a word, a phrase, or even a sentence, it will always be put into a slanted bracket like that. Okay? Remember that because that's how we, that's how we categorize, that's how we differentiate, that's how do you call it? That's how we separate that this particular symbol that you are referring to is a symbol of IPA. Okay? All right. Next to that is we move to the letter A in father. Notice how different that A sounds. It's a much longer, more relaxed open A sound. Similar to the vowel sound in words like car or art, you hold this sound for a slightly longer duration. So the IPA symbol for this sound is that one. Now, a little bit tip on this. I've mentioned that this is this is a long a long A vowel sound. So there's two dots indicating its length in beside it, right? It looks like a colon. So if in the IP transcription of a phrase of of a word, a phrase, or a sentence, if the vowel symbol there has a colon beside it, that is most likely a long vowel sound. Just like that, an A with a colon beside it. That's we tend to say that this particular symbol, this particular sound is long. We hold it a bit longer. Okay? All right. And finally, look at the A in came, where the A takes on yet another distinct sound. It's a long A sound, like the words in day or play or maybe. So this particular sound is what we call a diphthong. It's a single vowel sound that starts in one position and smoothly glides or moves to another within the same syllable. So the IPA symbol for this is that one. There's two vowel letters. There's two vowels in there, right? So I've mentioned earlier that a diphthong consists of one vowel sound and another vowel sound. So that's what makes a diphthong a diphthong. Okay? So right there, everyone, with just one letter, which is A, we have identified three completely different sounds. So this clearly demonstrates that looking at the letter in English doesn't always give you a reliable clue about its pronunciation. You can just assume an A will always sound like in cut or in father or came. You need to learn the specific sound each word makes. That's why it's very complicated. It's very complex. It's very hard. It's very difficult. So this is precisely why developing your awareness of English sounds independent of spelling is so incredibly valuable. It helps you shift your focus from what you see to what you hear and what you say. By recognizing that letters are flexible in their sounds, you can approach new vocabulary with a better understanding that direct translation from spelling is not always possible. This understanding empowers you to improve your intelligibility, which is one of the importance of pronunciation that I've mentioned earlier, as well as enhanced clarity of meaning and of course building your confidence is the very important part. Because when you understand why English is structured this way and you learn the actual sounds, you will feel much more comfortable and natural when speaking. So as we continue our journey, remember this key point. We will be practicing identifying these various sounds and understanding how letters work to create them. So this awareness is really huge, a huge leap forward in mastering English pronunciation. All right. Let's really delve into this second crucial aspect of the mismatch letters versus sounds. The slide is focusing on the key point number 2. Many letters can make one sound, so it is the perfect counterpoint to our previous discussion, and it truly highlights the beautiful yet sometimes bewildering complexity of English pronunciation. As the slide clearly states, this key point means that different letters or combinations of letters can make the same sound. So you can think about it for a moment. Here, it is not just about one letter being flexible. It's also about a single sound being quite versatile in its spelling. This is a very common feature of English, and understanding it can significantly improve both your pronunciation and your reading skills. So let's unpack the excellent example provided in the slide, the letter F sound or the sound. Okay? This is a fundamental consonant sound in English, the one you hear at the beginning of words like fun, fast, for, free. So it's a breathy sound made by your top teeth lightly touching your bottom lip. Okay? Now consider how this single distinct F sound can be represented in writing. The most straightforward common way is of course with the letter F, as in the word fish. The F directly corresponds to the F sound. So this feels natural and predictable. However, really loves to keep us on our toes. Look at the word phone. Phone. Here, the F sound is produced by the combination of letters P and H, which is a consonant cluster. If you were to pronounce each letter individually, you might say hone, right? Which is not correct, obviously. Instead, the PH together acts as a single unit to create that familiar F sound. So this particular spelling comes from the words borrowed from Greek origins. And for perhaps the most surprising example, consider the word enough. Enough. At the very end of this word, the letters G and H, which is also a consonant cluster, it magically transforms into the F sound. We don't pronounce the G or the H separately here. The GH combination here makes the exact same sound as the F in fish or the PH in phone. This spelling often comes from older English roots. That is why. So here we have it, three completely different spellings, F, PH, and GH, all converging to produce one identical sound, the letter F. This is just, a powerful demonstration of how the written English system can be quite inconsistent. And why does this happen? Again, it largely goes back to the fascinating history of the English language. As English evolved, it absorbed words, many different languages, each with its own spelling conventions. Over centuries, while the pronunciations sometimes simplified or changed, the spellings often remained. And this rich tapestry of linguistic origins means we don't have a perfectly phonetic system. Instead, we have this dynamic interplay between letters and sounds, of course. Okay. So that is for key point number 2. Okay. All right. Moving on to, where are we? Okay. Let's take a bit more time to appreciate this slide, which offers a reassuring perspective after our discussions about complexities of English pronunciation. So this slide, counting letters versus counting sound. Let me go back. Okay. It highlights key point number 1. Sometimes they match. So we have spent some time exploring how English can be quite unpredictable, with one letter making many sounds or many letters making one sound. While it's true, those aspects can be challenging. However, it's equally important to recognize that English is not always like that. There are also many instances where things are quite straightforward, and this slide brings that positive aspect to light. As it states, quite simply, some words have the same numbers of letters and sounds. This means that for a significant portion of English vocabulary, you can always count the letters and you'll find that each letter, or a very clear direct combination, corresponds to a single distinct sound. There's no silent letter, no surprising combined sound, just a clear one-to-one relationship. Okay, let's look closely at the clear examples provided here. Take the word dog. When you write it, you use 3 letters, D-O-G. Now, if you pronounce it slowly and carefully, D-G, dog, dog, you can clearly hear 3 separate and distinct sounds. Each letter directly represents one sound. So we have three letters and three sounds. It's exactly what you see is what you get. That's it. Similarly, consider the word desk. When you spell it, you write DESK, which is four letters. When you pronounce it, we get D, I, S, K. Again, you hear four distinct sounds, each directly mapped to a letter. Four letters, four sounds. These examples are incredibly important because they show us that while English has its own complexities, it also has strong foundation of regularity. Okay? Very important. Next, let's take an even deeper dive into this absolutely crucial slide. Counting letters still versus counting sounds. Key point number 2. Often more letters than sounds. This is a very, very common phenomenon in English, and understanding it will significantly enhance your pronunciation and listening comprehension. As the site clearly states, many English words have more letters than the sound we actually hear. This happens for a few reasons, mainly because English uses combination of letters, which we call digraphs like sh or ch, or sometimes double letters like FF, PP in shopping, for example, or even silent letters, which all work together to create single sounds. These aren't just extra sounds, they are just different ways of writing one sound. Okay? Let's break down the examples provided on the slide in detail so we can really hear and see what the principle in action. First, consider the word coffee. If we count the letters, we have COFFEE. That's a total of 6 letters. Now let's focus on the sounds we actually make when we say coffee. Now we hear first sound, the K sound or the letter K sound, which is, one of the many versions of letter C. Here it is K. Alright? Letter K sound or K, K, K. Okay. The ba? Yeah, sorry. The sound, which is the next sound, distinct sound here, it is short and, it is short and quick. Following that is the letter F sound, which has both F's in coffee. Together make just one F sound. We don't pronounce two distinct letter F sounds, okay? So when we put it all together, coffee actually has 4 distinct sounds, even though it has 6. It has 6 letters. Sorry for that. It has 6 letters. So the FF and EE combinations reduce the number of individual sounds. Now let's look at the word teacher. Again, teacher for a moment. Let's look at the word teacher. Counting the letters, we have TEACHER. There's 7 letters all in all. Now let's break down the sounds in teacher. First is T, T. Second is E, E, which is a long E vowel sound here, E. Next, Ch, Ch, Ch. Following that is And lastly, R. Again, R. So there are 5 distinct sounds for this particular word. Alright? Finally, let's examine shopping. Wait for a moment. I've mentioned it already. Okay. Next is shopping. For a moment. Now here, the word is spelled as SHOPPING, which is 8 letters. And the sounds for shopping are sh. This is a common diagram for the sh sound. From PP, like FF, double consonants usually make just one sound. E, short E, or NG. Okay? So, that one. This is another common diagram making the NG sound like in sing. So, in shopping, despite having 8 letters, we only have 5 distinct sounds. Now, what do these detailed examples reveal to us? It revealed to us that we have efficiency for English language learning and spelling. It is also seeing importance of sound units, and also impact on fluency, as well as to um, add or aid to listening. Okay. This often more less than sounds phenomenon is curious and why direct letter to sound translation doesn't always work in English. But by recognizing it, we equip ourselves with a powerful tool or to more comfortable and accurate pronunciation and improved comprehension. All right. Next, we are moving on to the last key point for this. Now, this point highlights that sometimes a sound is pronounced even if it's not clearly written. So this is the reverse of silent letters, where the letter is written but not pronounced. Here we are talking about the sound that is pronounced but doesn't have specific letter or clear combination explicitly representing in the spelling. These sounds are often subtle and just, part of how English is spoken. Let's look at the examples provided. Okay? All right, that's hidden sounds. First is the word use. If you say use slowly, pay attention to the very beginning. Use. It starts with a sound that's very familiar to the letter Y in yes or yellow. The sound is represented by the IPA symbol, which is letter J. This one. Don't be confused. Listen carefully. The IPA symbol for the letter Y sound is letter J, with, of course, a bracket beside it. So that you don't get confused, the IPA symbol for letter J is Y. Okay? Next, the word onion. This is another interesting one. Many native speakers, when they say onion, often include a subtle J and, you know, right after the end, so it's not simply onion. It's often more like onion. Again, onion. Again, there's no Y written in the spelling, but that sound is naturally produced as part of the word's pronunciation. Okay? All right. That's it, I think. That's the hidden sounds that are great examples of how spoken English can sometimes have these subtle extra elements that aren't explicitly in the written form. They're just often sounds that naturally emerge from the way certain vowel or consonant combinations are produced in English. Okay? So while we've seen letters that don't make sounds, we're going to see don't that don't even be obvious. If truly rounds out our understanding of the fascinating complexity between English spelling and sound. All right? Okay. We're going to have slide 13 next. Next slide. Now, counting letters versus what we've already mentioned about that one. Okay, it's actually time to practice. Let's have a practice drill, everyone. It's your turn now. Of course, your turn, your time to practice. We've explored some really key ideas today about English spelling and sounds. Now it's time to put that knowledge into action. Let's move on to our practical activities. All right, everyone. Welcome to our practice drill. This is where apply everything we talked about regarding these letters versus sounds. Okay, look at the word prominently displayed on the side. Phone. How now for this word? I want you to consider those questions, just like the slide asks. Very simple. How many letters? How many letters does it have? You can count them carefully. How many sounds does it have? Try say the word aloud and then listen closely to each distinct sound you make. Okay? All right. Great job, everyone. Great job on thinking through phone. Now let's reveal the answers and see how well we did. And more importantly, to understand why the numbers are what they are. Okay? All right. Okay. For a moment. All right. Great job, everyone, on thinking through our short practice drill. Let's start immediately with the word phone. Now, what I want you to do is just read the whole sentence that or not sentence, but read the whole. Okay, great job, everyone, on thinking through phone. Now here, as you can see, that's clearly 5 individual letters for phone. This is the easy part, right? Now, this is where understanding of the letter sound mismatch comes in handy. When we say phone, we actually make only 3 distinct sounds, so let's break them down. The first sound is the letter F sound. Of course, that comes from a combination of PH. Remember, our many letters can make one sound. PH is a perfect example for 2 letters forming a single band. The second sound is the U. This is the long U vowel sound, often called a diphthong, like in um go or how do you call that? For a moment. Where am I? A cell phone. Okay. So the slide explicitly clarifies PH makes one F sound. This is a common digraph when 2 letters represent a single word. Okay? All right. Okay. Next word. We have no. Very simple. I've mentioned it already earlier. All right. Great effort to know. This word is a classic example of English unique sound for relationship. Let's break it down a little and see the answers as presented in the slide. All right. Great effort on, know everyone for the word. All right. Now, if we count the letters, no, that's a straightforward 4 letters. Notice, right? Okay. I think that's 4 letters. Well, that's the very easy part of this one. There are 4 letters, of course. Okay. Now, the slide tells us K is silent, which is a very common silent letter pattern in the slide. This is a very common silent letter pattern. Okay. Now, this is another really good place to practice identifying this tense sounds versus individual teasers. All 3. All right. Okay. Next word is read. Again, read. So for the word read, we have 4 letters, but only 3 distinct sounds with a long E vowel sound. This word perfectly illustrates how multiple letters can combine to form one single round, leading to more letters than actual sounds, just like we discussed earlier. All right. Okay. So how everyone, but yeah, anyway, let's focus on that. That's on. No. Next is receipt. Now we're ready for our final practice. Our word of this session. This one is a real combined, but it's a great way to find we've covered a lot about silent C. Okay. Same pattern, same process. Just tell me how many letters does it have, and how, as well as how many sounds. Okay. All right. For a moment. Excuse me. Let's try to break down receipt together. Looking at the cameras and the sounds, I don't understand the explanations. Okay? All right. All right, everyone. Great effort. This word is truly, fantastic example for our session as it bumps as it scrumps, back several of the key concepts we discuss about the fascinating and sometimes icky relationship between English. So, how do you call that? Yeah, Unchi is up already. Now, well, letters, there are 7 letters. First, let's encounter the letters. We have receipt, straightforward, Ganzamos, and that one. Okay? All right. Great effort and tracking period. This word truly is a fantastic final example for our session. Let me check for a moment my audio as well as my video. Okay. All right. Everything's good, I think. Next is receipt. Again, receipt. Now, from your pronunciation, looking at all the letters and then the sounds and understand explanations provided in the table, crystal is should be or it should be longer in that particular part in let's have that a little bit longer if it's possible only. Okay. Now let's break down receipt together, looking at the same letters and the sounds and understand the explanations above on the slide. Letters. First, let's count on the letters. We have receipt, a straightforward count of 7 letters. Okay. All right. The first, let's move on to the patient, of course. What receipt teaches us? This single word, receipt, is a true, you know, how do you call that? Receipt here, more letters than sounds, small letters, and then multiple letters on one sound. Okay? All right. So, that is on Hisong. Yeah, his name is Hisong. All right, everyone. Work is really tackling though. This word is a superstar when it comes to demonstrating the powerful in wonder, sometimes bewildering complexities of English pronunciation. It can perfectly encapsulate one of my mismatches we've been talking and exploring in this session. Okay? And lastly, let's break down the word thought. Again, thought. Is it thought? Yeah. All right. Of course. Now, since it's thought, PH, the consonant cluster PH makes one F sound, right? I've already mentioned it earlier. Now, this is a common digraph where two letters makes a single span. All right? Okay. Next, so in my phone, influences that vowel before it has done already. All right. Okay. That's the last word, I think. Let me check. All right. Yeah. This is the last word for us. I don't know when it's gonna be next time, but yeah. Okay. So far, the word read, we have 4 letters, but only 3 discussants, and one of them complained. Now, alright, everyone, we are ready for our final practice. Despite the customer, she said yes, of course. All bookmarks is, it's very final destination word of this session. This one is real challenge, but it's a great way of representing for listening for everything. All right? Okay. And that's on next few set of hours. All right. All right. Going back. Sorry for that. Yeah. This is the last part. We have thought. This is the last one. Now this uses the one of the 2 versions of TH sound, which is a voiceless TH sound. We're gonna dig deeper into that in our upcoming sessions. All right. Now thought has 2, 4, 7 letters, but 3 sounds only. The sounds of TH or the sound, and then O, and then T or T, or the letter T sound. So thought. Explanation: the O makes one sounds. The G and H itself is excellent and excellent at silence. So these are silent letters. That is on. Why our key takeaway here should be English is often inconsistent. All right. English spelling doesn't always guide pronunciation, and this is a core challenge. Of course, we need a better system. IPA emerges next lesson. Of course, we know that, right? IPA will be there. All right. So again, our key takeaway here in our first session on English pronunciation, it perfectly summarizes it. It beautifully captures everything we've explored today about the relationship between letters and sounds and end. English is really often inconsistent here. That's what it says. English is often inconsistent. So we've seen this throughout our session, whether it's one letter having many sounds or many letters having one sound, or those tricky silent and hidden sounds. The English doesn't always have to follow a perfectly predictable for him. All right. Next is English spelling doesn't always guide communication. This is a source of challenge. The challenge is okay. All right. That's you've chosen color number, not color number, but color red, of course. Next, English is often inconsistent, so we've seen this throughout our session. English spelling doesn't always come back still in our OPM transcription, as well as for not for dentist, but since I will be following my Lola to her follow-up checkup, I can just relax on that particular day. But anyway, the good news here is that the most exciting part for our next session is we need a better system and IPA emerges, which is the next lesson. Because English spelling isn't always a reliable guide for pronunciation, we need a tool that is consistent and a system that focuses purely on sound. And that's exactly what the International Phonetic Alphabet or IPA proves. It's better than a system, and of course, how do you call that? It helps us navigate these inconsistencies. Now, as a little sneak peek for what's coming, next take a look at the screen. Again, take a look at the screen. All right, this is what the IPA transcription table generally looks like. Don't worry about understanding all the symbols right now. We're just focusing on how. Again, how you just finished. Okay, that's on the house progress. All right, everyone, it wraps our very first session in English pronunciation. All right? Okay. All right, everyone. Okay, that's it, I think. Wait for a moment. All right, I think that's it. What we can take away is that we need a better system so that IPA merges. Then at this point, you should be able to live in LA because of those foams. All right. Okay. That's IPA merges. Now at this point, you would show the IPA table slide. See, it's a system built purely for sounds, helping us bypass the tricky spellings. We will explore how to use this incredible tool in our next session. All right? Okay, everyone, that wraps up our our very first session on where? On English pronunciation. I just want to say a huge thank you to all of you for your incredibly active participation today. Your insights, your questions, and your willingness to try out those dance practices. Whoa, it just made so much better. All right? All right, okay. You've all done a fantastic job of observing, analyzing, and discussing these key points about how English spelling and sounds work. Everyone, I just want to say a huge thank you to all of you for your incredibly active participation today. So your insights, how your queens, and your willingness to try out those practice words made this session really engaging and clariful for the for the video. Okay. All right. That is on that. Now, what you see in your screen is a sneak peek of what IPA looks like. But anyway, let's not be bombarded with that. Let's just focus on what is now. Okay. And what you have gained today is a crucial awareness. Understand why, you know, English can sometimes feel a bit inconsistent in its pronunciation and why just looking at the letters is not always enough. This understanding is a really important step towards speaking English more clearly and confidently. So you're building a strong foundation for your pronunciation journey. Some remember the cold challenges. How do you call that? English spelling doesn't always just, guide pronunciation, but also remember the solution we hinted at, which is the IPA. Next time, we're going to dive into the International Phonetic Alphabet itself. We will explore how these amazing tools work and how it can be your best manner consistently. Learning and remembering English sounds, it will give you a clear, universal map for a second. All right? Okay. Okay. So I think that's all, everyone. For now, give yourselves a pat on the back. You've done great work. Get ready for an exciting exploration of the IPA in our next session. I'm really looking forward to continuing this journey with all of you and see you next time. Goodbye. Good, goodbye and have a great rest of the night ahead.